Cinco de Mayo is always a big boxing weekend, and this year we have an all-Mexican showdown of youth versus experience. Canelo Alvarez will look to defend his undisputed super middleweight title for a fourth straight time on Saturday in Las Vegas against former super welterweight world champion Jaime Munguia. Let's break down the big fight. We're going to do it with the co-host of the mandatory boxing show, Bryan Fonseca, who joins me now. Bryan, what's going on?
Very, very exciting weekend of fights we have. And I'm not talking about Kendrick versus Drake, but that's another one.
That's another battle where people have been feeling a lot of euphoria this week. But we will get into these fights. There is an experience gap in this fight, Bryan. Canelo, the older fighter, against Munguia, the much younger fighter. How significant is the experience gap in this bout?
Jaime Munguia is 6-0 with 3 knockouts in world title fights. Canelo Alvarez is 21-2-1 with 11 knockouts in world title fights. So you're talking about basically 4 times the experience, because Canelo's been fighting in world title fights since like 2011. We're talking about over a decade ago. And Jaime Munguia's first shot at the world title was approximately in like 2018. And he also hasn't been fighting world title fights for a while because he was a champion at super welterweight, moved up to middleweight, didn't win a title there, and now is at super middleweight, which is probably his best weight class. I think he's even going to be a light heavyweight one day. Like, this is a big dude. Jaime Munguia is very, very strong, but I do think the experience factor could be important because Canelo Alvarez is just more versatile, better defensive fighter, and is somebody who I think is going to be very, very smart in the ring against Jaime Munguia instead of just being reckless.
Okay, so you think the experience matters here. So let me ask you this about Munguia. What are the main challenges that Munguia faces as he steps up to fight a seasoned champion like Canelo Alvarez?
Well, I think the main challenges that Munguia is going to face is, on top of the experience, he's just not as good defensively, and Canelo Alvarez is. Now, Jaime Munguia is going to have the size and reach advantages. Like, he's going to be longer. He might be stronger as well, but Canelo Alvarez is a better defensive fighter who's been there with every type of dude. And for somebody who's only 5'8", he does have a 71-inch reach, which is not, that's about 5'11". And the reach is almost equivalent to Jaime Munguia's, who's about that 73, 72-ish range. So the reach is not going to be a big disadvantage there. And Canelo Alvarez has had experience outboxing guys who are bigger than him and potentially stronger than him. And Jaime Munguia may be, but Canelo Alvarez also is one of the best body punchers of his era, maybe ever, and is somebody who can take a punch. Like, he has an impressive chin. Jaime Munguia has more holes defensively that I think Canelo Alvarez could expose.
All right, so defense, something to watch with Munguia there. Canelo is going to be fighting, obviously, a less experienced fighter, much younger. What strategic adjustments must Canelo make to cope with a younger and possibly faster opponent in Munguia?
Pace himself is one. And two, I wonder if Canelo Alvarez is reaching the Manny Pacquiao stage of his career, where Manny Pacquiao, if you remember, got 1 knockout after 2009 and fought up until like 2021. And he was somebody who was knocking people out early on. Now, some of this could be because he moved all the way up to welterweight and even super welterweight at one point, and Manny Pacquiao just wasn't knocking guys out anymore. Canelo Alvarez, still a devastating power puncher, still somebody who's one of the elite body punchers in the game, one of the elite fighters in the game, but is somebody who hasn't recorded a knockout since late 2011 against Caleb Plant. So we're going on 5 fights now where he hasn't had a stoppage victory. And I wonder, can he hurt Jaime Munguia enough? I think he can hit him, but can he hurt him enough to actually change the fight in that direction and potentially get the stoppage? And obviously Jaime Munguia, he has stamina and things of that nature. We saw him go to war with Sergey Derevyanchenko, and kind of foolish of a start because he was getting pieced up early on. He wanted the fight to be a war early, and then he paid for it and almost paid for it had it not been for a 12th round knockdown. But Canelo Alvarez has got some pacing work to do, I think, in this fight. We thought that he would stop John Ryder, smaller ring in Mexico, and he didn't. And Jaime Munguia did in the very next fight. So that's something to watch as well.
All right, so for Canelo, pacing himself important in this one. A final thing for me, Bryan. Here we go. What's your prediction for the fight? Who comes out on top in this showdown? Are you going with Canelo or Munguia?
I think Canelo Alvarez wins. I don't think he's going to win forever, and he already did lose to Dimitri Bivol 2 years ago. But I think if somebody's going to beat him, it's probably going to be someone like David Benavidez, who's faster than Jaime Munguia, potentially stronger, has now moved up to light heavyweight. Canelo says he's willing to fight him, but they need to make the money work. And David Benavidez has said he wants that fight. I just think Jaime Munguia is a step below that. And I think Canelo Alvarez, though, is going to win this by decision. Jaime Munguia is still undefeated, has never been stopped. And Canelo Alvarez is just a better all-around boxer. I think the defense is going to showcase itself here. I think Jaime Munguia is going to want a war, and Canelo will engage in that at times. But I also think defensively, since he's gotten so much sharper, the head movement is going to be a problem, and I think the counterpunching is going to be a big issue. But ultimately, I think he wins at some points.
All right, going with Canelo on points. We'll see how it goes down Saturday, May 4th. All-Mexican showdown, as I said, on Cinco de Mayo weekend. Canelo Alvarez versus Jaime Munguia. Bryan Fonseca, co-host of The Mandatory. He will be all over this one for sure. Bryan, thank you for the time. Appreciate it. We'll talk soon.
Live show after the fight, too.
That's right. Got to check that out. Live show Mandatory after the fight that Bryan will be hosting with his co-host Chantel Shand. Check that one out. Thanks, Bryan.